Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. We're here with Bretonnia today, and you can see we've got quite the heavy air force. Yes, indeed, King Lewin leading 2 units of Hippogriff Knights. We've also got a healer, of course, with this much investment in air power. Single unit of ground cav here, Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, very cost effective with their frenzy. Decent charge bonus for only 850. They do only have 80 armor, but still just a solid unit overall. Great combat stats, very cost effective. 3 units of peasant bowmen and a whole mess of peasant infantry. We've got a ton of men-at-arms here, 4 swordsmen-at-arms, 3 spearmen-at-arms, no shields because you know, they're just filthy peasants. Well, they can catch missiles with their faces. Peasant mobs up front to soak even more. And we've got a single group of yeomen as well, picking away at my opponent who, you know, interesting build, definitely. I have seen this sort of high elf missile spam before. He does also have a Star Dragon here. We've got Techless, looks like Nets, Regrowth, and Chain Lightning. Interesting spell selection there. But we do have here Spearmen, 3 Sisters of Averlorn, so actually some really heavy AP missiles from the High Elves here. It's going to be potentially pretty dangerous for my units, especially if I get netted by Techless. You can see Lothern Seaguard here as well. And then, yeah, one of those Spearmen is the Regiment of Renown Scions of Nathlon here with their neat, I don't know, water horse shields? What would you call this thing? A seahorse? I guess it is kind of like a seahorse, just the tail seems oddly long, and then it has the, you know, the hoofs and stuff. Anyway, focusing way too much on that. As you see my forces advancing here, Lewin and his hippogriffs up, sitting on top of this peak here, just kind of peering down at my opponent as the infantry advance. We do need the filthy mass of peasants to distract and help catch some missiles and everything, so we are going to move them up and just wait with everything else. In addition, you can see I've also got the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis out here in lance formation, ready to charge in with any defensive geometry. Just a pro tip for you guys. When you're up against an enemy's defensive geometry, there's always going to be a corner somewhere. So like right here, I could come in and wedge charge this corner, and if I charge like this back unit of Lothern Seaguard, for example, and got a good side charge in, we would still apply our charge bonus. We could then probably crash through into the back line potentially. But you can see the High Elf archers opening up shots. They're going to start hitting those peasant mobs. I mean, this is probably the most cost-effective mobs can possibly be, is catching the arrows of the sisters specifically. They are pretty expensive. They don't have the most ammo in the world as well, so at least the peasants will die happily seeing pretty lights before they, you know, get headshotted. But yep. Good job, peasants. You're doing what you're supposed to. You can see here the Star Dragon's gonna go screen out these defenders, which is actually just fine by me. I was a little bit concerned that the Star Dragon was going to be here. The plan is to just move in and use these 3 heavy flyers to just immediately hit specifically the 3 units of Sisters of Averlorn, obviously because they are the most high value targets here. Sword of Corone going to be dropped. Unfortunately, because of Lewin's attack animations, it doesn't hit all 3 units, but maybe it's hitting all 3 units now. Looks like now I'm going after Techless, and now it hits these other 2 units. And Sisters of Averlorn do have pretty good melee defense, so I was actually very much betting on having that Sword of Corone, but unfortunately, because Lewin's kind of all over the place, the Sword of Corone also kind of follows him around. So yeah, Star Dragon comes down, and all of a sudden this is not the best situation in the world. Nice Chain Lightning there, ripping through a horde of peasants, broke up my advance on this side. And yeah, you can see I am taking quite a bit of advantage on the Star Dragon here. We are in range with the healer though. We're going to pop a regrowth on these Hippogriff Knights and start to just move everything in on the Star Dragon. Granted, this isn't super efficient fighting on the ground because you can see a lot of the unit models are distracted by various elf infantry units, and I mean, granted, doing damage to these Sisters of Averlorn is great, but I mean, there's Lothern Seaguard in here as well, which isn't super efficient, but we have at least got the peasants into range, and these peasant bowmen can be very cost-effective at shooting at these light armor Sisters of Averlorn. Only 40 armor on these guys, so those peasant archers will be able to do some really good work here. One of them does have pox arrows, the others are just normal, but Yeah, we are taking some AP missiles, though, so we need to try and shut them down as quickly as possible. Peasants making their way up and around the flank, just kind of keeping a lot of this infantry held up and distracted for the time being. But at this point, the defenders can start to sweep up and around, as a lot of units have been engaged in melee. We get a nice Earthblood here, hitting both of these Royal Hippogriff Knights, and since we're back up in the air, the Star Dragon likewise followed us back in the air, and now we can get a free full surround here with no distractions, no filthy Elven infantry, with their filthy missile weapons. I mean, they can try and support from the ground, but they're getting lit up by peasant archers, and, once the Star Dragon's low enough, then I'm going to immediately charge down. Not to mention, here come the defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, lance charging straight through those Sisters of Avalorn, and going to get into this area here to start pressuring. You can see with enough damage done to the Star Dragon, the Hippogriffs come down to the ground and start to work on these Sisters as well. So yeah, all in all, things are going pretty well. Balance of power is pretty well in my favor at this point. Not really too much to threaten my Damsel or my archers at this point. I mean, the Lothern Sea Guard and others can try and counterfire the peasants, but it's really cost inefficient, especially because these Lothern Sea Guard don't have shields, so they're going to take a lot more damage. Well, they'll take probably about the same amount of damage, but obviously Lothern Sea Guard are a lot more expensive, so it's just not efficient at all. And Teclis is going to go for a ride there, as Lewin starts to move in to finish him off. And that should be pretty much it for the High Elves. Royal Hippogriff Knights just moving in to finish things, and there are still a few spearmen and other units fighting. Teclis himself is not quite dead yet, but oh man, Teclis just gets stuffed. Oh man, just got whitewashed straight up, the face full of snow by the Hippogriff there, so yeah. Needless to say, Teclis is not long for this world, and the Hippogriff Knights are terrifying away the rest of the Elves. They're very quickly going to move towards army losses, and that should be a game, so well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. It's definitely a fun time. There's the High Elves. It's potentially a pretty tough matchup for them. In my experience, Bretonnia has a lot of really good tools for shutting down the High Elves, and the High Elves, like Bretonnia, aren't amazing against large single entity models. I mean, they definitely have some tools, Sisters of Avalorn being one of them, but just in general, like Hippogriffs and Lewin, especially because of Lewin's Lion Shield. I didn't really highlight it too much in the replay, but Lion Shield does give you missile and magic resistance, and obviously Sisters of Avalorn do magic damage. So if we go ahead and have a look here at the High Elves, so the Sisters of Avalorn, here they are, they do magic and fire damage, right? So if Lewin has his Lion Shield active, he's getting 88% resistance because they do stack here. So both the missile and magic resistance would apply in that case. They would both stack and give him 88% total resistance. So, I mean, granted, that's a pretty short amount of time. How long does it last? 22 seconds? It's not a super long time. That gives you a pretty good amount of uptime, though, where you're more or less immune to the Sisters of Avalorn fire. You can basically just regenerate what little damage does get through. So, Lewin himself just negates one of those tools. That means you really have to use, like, Nobles, Enfeebling Foe. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's some different things you can do, but it's definitely a tough matchup for the High Elves. Nobles in general on horseback are pretty good here. They'll do okay at supporting against enemy heavy cavalry. I would imagine they might get blown up by Hippogriff Knights, but if you have both of them kind of together, supported with some other units, maybe some... I hesitate to say the Fireborn because they're so expensive, and Grail Knights hard counter them. But they do have anti-large. I don't know. It's tough. Maybe you grab a Frostheart Phoenix, actually, because this is reasonably heavily armored. It does have good AP values. Causes fear and terror, and likewise, I've said this before, but Bretonnia also isn't amazing at dealing with single entity, large single entities that are well armored. Granted, the strategy I just showed you, that Sword of Corone, massive alpha strike, is one way of dealing with it, but just in general, the Phoenix, it doesn't have the healing, but I mean, like, if you're going double noble, and let's say you probably want Teclis or Ilario, personally, I think Teclis is a little bit better here. It offers some pretty good utility. The Flaming Sword of Ruin can help you get through units with physical resistance, like Grail Knights. I want to say, I don't know that Hippogriff Knights have physical resistance. I don't think they do. Royal Pegasus Knights do. Oh, they do. They have the Blessing of the Lady. Okay. So, I mean, Flaming Sword of Ruin will help you get a little bit more damage there. It's not amazing, but, I mean, Teclis does have Kindle Flame as well, so you'll get an additional 22% for that 15 seconds. Regrowth is obviously quite good. I mean, the regrowth in Peeling Foe nets, I've talked about this before, but this kit is pretty hard to beat. I mean, in this specific matchup, I sometimes bring Flaming Sword of Ruin as well. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here. Take this with a massive grain of salt, because I haven't actually tried this build, but let's just say you do something like that. Let's grab some regular archers. This army's just so small. Don't really have any meat. The Reavers will not really hold up to Bretonnian Cav. If anything, they'll just give you like a few seconds of, you know, not dying. But I don't know. Maybe you could upgrade these guys to Silver Helms. Try and change out some of the cost here. Silver Helms are just... I don't know. Maybe you do this. Maybe you run these Silver Helms, each of these groups of Silver Helms with a Noble and a Phoenix together. I don't know, though. You could just get caught out in the air by the Hippogriff Knights like I did there. Granted, Phoenixes are pretty fast. I really wish they would give the Frostheart Phoenix Frostbite or like a speed debuff aura, because that's what all the other Frost units in the game have. I mean, I know it has this melee attack debuff aura, which is one of the main reasons why you bring it here, because it will debuff your opponents. You can then trade a little bit better with the Nobles and the Silver Helms. I don't know, though. Silver Helms are just not... They're pretty light. Again, take this with a grain of salt. I would have to try this before I'd really give it my stamp of approval, but just on paper, something like this could work okay. The Phoenix gives you some heavy AP, and, you know, the Noble does as well. Heavy anti-large AP presence with a unit of Cav that's mobile, can go after enemy Cav. I don't know. If you guys want to try it out and let me know how it works for you, you know, feel free, but just take it with a grain of salt that I have not actually tried this. I'm just kind of theory crafting, if you will. But something like this might work, certainly. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.